Alright, so welcome. So the consulting framework typically consists of 7 steps. Alright. If you see it on your screen, it starts with understand and define the problem. So first is the definition of the problem, which they kind of encompass in their mindsets when the communication is put forth. It follows by the research, and if you remember the research methodology, etc., be that being used since Rise 1 to Rise 3, that is the level of research these people go to, in spite of being the subject matter expert in the subject they are in. Okay, why they do this? Because the world keeps on changing around them, so they need to be with the latest and a little more futuristic from perspective of what they're giving the solution for. Okay, now again, they would have the solution in place already in their mindset because of the experience and the background that these people have, but they will see and check and verify themselves by the virtue of what's happening in the world if some things have changed from whatever they're doing, and those, if the checklist is tick marked, they're good to go with their solution sets. Okay, so define, research, followed by prioritizing. Now what does prioritize in terms of organize and prioritize data? This means that I just explained the whole research factor, right? Once you research, you have so much of data elements in front of you. You have to pick up the right ones, right? In terms of the ideations that are coming about and the pattern that is being seen through with the virtue of your research. That you will prioritize in terms of what is required to be given to your end customer who's trying to find the solution for their problems. Okay. So as an outcome of the research, so much of data, it gets prioritized to the format and the subject that they want to, with the virtue of the futuristic outlook they're looking, depending on the solution and the path they're taking to the solution, right? So that becomes the third element within the steps. So again, define, research, and prioritize the research. Based on that, then they start they started putting the hypothesis in place. Now sometimes the path might not be as clear because future outlook might not give the exact picture. Only certain key indicators or elements might come into play. So this is where they start put some assumptions into view of their solutions, right? For example, if a geopolitical situation doesn't allow certain problem to get solved in the short term, right, then they would suggest that put an assumption of 3 years to solve that problem and do it in 1, 2, 3, 4 steps because of XYZ reason, and this is the assumption for those reasons. All right, so they hypothesize that as the virtue of the finding from the research. Okay, so define, research, prioritize, and hypothesize. Then they start analyzing this data. So assumptions once in place, then they start putting their final analysis, right, and then kind of verify their own findings and their understanding of the problem. So with the assumptions and the research, they now have the final data, which they finally kind of analyze, verify whatever they knew earlier, and then go about synthesizing it, right? That means what they do is they go about putting all the elements that require to go for a pointed solution for the given scenario by the customer, right? And the given scenario could mean the cultural aspect of things, the competition of the customer, it would mean their internal workforce, it would mean the external partners, it would mean whichever cycle they are in, the growth, degrowth, or the entire startup mode if they would otherwise also, right? So then they synthesize their findings based on the analysis, and then they go about putting their recommendation in place. Okay, and that recommendation is either in form of a PPT or a proposal, if you will, or a form of a Word document suggesting papers in a short element before they go about presenting themselves on a one-on-one basis, either to the top brass or the managerial level, whatever is the solution applicable for. Okay, and sometimes they do at multitude levels. Having said that, this view is more on a business consulting perspective, right? But when there's a technology or specific to an execution of a subject matter activity, right, it also goes into 2 elements, right, which is a kickoff. Okay, so it's more than the paper now, mind you. So paper, whatever the presentation they do, there will also be a roadmap, there will be a consulting activity, and based on the consulting activity, there would be a execution process, right? How to implement the solution that they're suggesting. Okay, typically at business consulting level, it withers away by the advisory activity that they give and the solution in the paper, which then the company typically kind of goes about managing themselves. But if it's a subject matter or technology kind of a solution that they have come with, then there's a whole kickoff mode, because whatever solution they come up with be a little broad based, right? So there's a kickoff, and because it's advertised and you'll understand why, because it will be part of the change management activity, and based on that the execution starts, right? So those are two additional steps if it's a technology related solution, or there's an execution to be done, which could be the virtue of consulting activity per se, right? Otherwise, for business, typically it's an advisory and it's passed on as a paper and solution, and they typically wither off unless the customer wants them to be part of their solutional activities, even for the business kind of solutions. All right. So with that, I hope this gives you a little inkling of an idea what goes at steps once there is a consulting exercise in the foray. Okay. With that, let's jump to the next one, the types of consulting, right? This will be important for you to understand where you would stand in the whole picture of consulting scheme of things. Okay. I'll see you there in a minute.